Hey, this is Andy Jenkins with the Oily App Podcast. In this episode of the Oily App Podcast, we are going to wrap up the Claim Your Freedom series. Now, we've talked about over the past several weeks, we've talked about PTSD, we've talked about moral injury, we've talked about the Freedom Sleep Kit and how sleep is really what you need to do first when you're facing a traumatic event, even while you're in the middle of the event. And we talked about the Freedom Release Kit, whereas you need to sleep first. At some point, you've actually got to get to where you're moving forward and facing life. And so we've given you some resources and tools for all of that. In this episode, I want to take you to some information that Dr. Jim Bob shared at the end of that video course. Now, if you're interested in catching all the videos from this, you can just go to the link I have in the show notes, oilyapp.com/freedom. I also have a link to the book in the show notes where you can grab that book. In this episode, he really talks about, from the final video, talks about some practical things you can do every single day. So the essential oils that we use are incredible. The vitamins, the supplements, all of that, amazing. The chemical-free lifestyle of household cleaners and other products we use, that's radically beneficial. At the same time, those are all part of an overall lifestyle of health and wholeness. So that they're not a substitute, they are part. And so in this video, you're going to love it. Dr. Jim Bob, he actually talked about 3 tools that cost you absolutely nothing. They're completely free. They'll cost you minimal time, minimal effort, but these will sustain you for the long haul, not just in times of trauma, but in all of life. These are going to be things that you're going to integrate into your lifestyle. So remember this, emotional wholeness, it's not just about moving through the past and not just about getting over past hurts. It's also about moving from that past into your potential. These tools are going to actually help you do that. So here's what I want you to listen for. I want you to listen for one of the tools that's going to help you process and reprocess which things you're believing that might not necessarily be true. They might just be perspectives on things that aren't necessarily wrong, but they're just perspectives. He's going to give you a tool for that. He's also going to give you this other tool. I really enjoyed this one, and hearing this and applying this, that's going to tell you how to fire off the other side of your brain so that you don't get emotionally hijacked. Okay, so that said, here's talk number 6 in the Claim Your Freedom series, the last one in this series. Next week, we're going to get on another amazing topic, more tools for freedom. Here's the audio.
So in other videos in this series, we've talked, Andy, about what emotional trauma looks like and what happens in the brain and neuroplasticity and all of these different things. And we've gone through the Freedom Release and the Freedom Sleep kits and how those really work. But, I want to talk about it for a second. Like, there's some practical things that people can do every single day in their lifestyle that really helps to identify things that are going on, helps to allow them to bring those things up. We talked about in the video about moral injury, how they need to be able to get it out into the light and get these things out, in front of them. Well, there's ways to do that just with themselves and activities they can do too to really help speed up the process, narrow down the focus on what's going on, and allow that brain to heal.
Okay, let's talk through it.
Okay.
What would you suggest?
Well, let's talk like lifestyle stuff first. Like, basic stuff on lifestyle that I think people take for granted is just movement, like exercise and movement. And, I know you're a runner, Andy, and I know, like, when you go for a run, like, does it clear your head, or do you feel more stressed when you're running?
No, it's what's weird about when I'm running is if I'm intentionally trying not to think about something, like just kind of, hey, I'm just going to enjoy this. That's somehow where my best ideas come from. Exactly. I don't know why, but...
Well, I know why. Because neurologically, everything goes back to the brain, right? So exercise is a very specific neurological process that fires the left side of your brain. That side of the brain is the part of the brain that deals with a part of the nervous system we call the parasympathetic, which is basically the opposite of stress. It's the part of the brain that deals with resting and digesting, and it allows you as a guide, because most men are more left brain dominant, like to generalize, but it allows you to get into a place to organize your thoughts, and it creates less chaos mentally. So just like activity period in that exercise is a really key thing. Doesn't have to be running. I mean, it can be things simple like stretching and yoga. That's why yoga is so key, because it's literally stretching and intentional movement and quiet.
Right.
Stillness. Like taking time out, like where meditation and prayer, like having a quiet time. We talk about that a lot with our friends in Christian circles, but just period as human beings, like having a period of time where you're just doing nothing and sitting is key to allow your brain to work through the process of the day or anything.
Right. Okay. So movement.
Yep.
What else? What's another one?
Well, if we look at diet and we look at lifestyle that way, we talked about in other videos how with sleep, when sleep gets off during traumatic events, it affects blood sugar and it affects your ability to be satisfied with your food. So in a situation when you know that there's a stressful situation emotionally, or you're going through a time that's going to be very hard mentally, death of a loved one, going through a traumatic event, you know you're about to lose a job, whatever, you're about to move, whatever the situation is, and you can kind of plan for it, or you find yourself in one, really ratcheting in on the diet and eating more live foods, eating less simple sugars or less processed foods, and really increasing the protein. I mean, that in of itself helps to balance blood sugar so much that it'll really help when someone's in a situation where they're having a lot of emotional trauma.
So far what you've said is two very simple things. It's just moving and then watching what you eat.
Yeah, move, eat a little bit better.
Things that are... Eating's not free, but it's something we're going to spend money on.
Well, it's things that you're doing every day. It's literally something that's in front of you. You're not having to take a lot of extra time out.
Not an extra thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
The third thing, though, that I think is like the most effective that I've used for years and years with patients and myself for that matter, and you do this a lot and unknowingly how it helps the brain is journaling.
Right.
Like literally writing things down. But I think when you say journaling to people, Andy, I think they really freak out like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to write a Dear Diary journal and keep it. And what if someone reads it and all these things about all my crazy, darkest thoughts? And there's different types of journaling, right? Fair? Like you have multiple notebooks of all the different thoughts and ideas that you use. And I do the same thing. There's different types. Well, with journaling, the way that I recommend journaling to really help with emotional trauma or stress, period, to be able to work through it, and it really ties into utilizing the essential oils, is you get an essential oil blend like Valor or like Transformation that we talked about, or even the Freedom Blend, and you apply the oil, put the oil on, and you journal, and you literally let the brain dump onto paper for a set period of time. And this is one of the key things, Andy. I think people freak out a lot about journaling because they're like, here's a piece of paper. Just write how you feel. And they're like, I don't know how I feel. And they're like, I don't know what I'm feeling on this. And there's this unlimited amount of time, and I feel all this pressure to like create this whole entry like you're writing an autobiography.
Like something like Hemingway or something.
Like you're Robert Frost or something crazy. It's not that. It's literally sitting in a space. I recommend, this sounds really crazy, but I recommend lined paper, loose leaf notebook paper, just lots of structure, and you set your alarm on your phone for 10 to 15 minutes tops.
Okay.
And you just literally let your brain vomit on paper and write down. And sometimes people say they just got out one word, or maybe it's a couple sentences. Maybe it's a grocery list of things that you didn't get done that day. Maybe it's 4 paragraphs about a specific person, whatever it is. Let it get out, let it get on paper, let your brain transfer that onto that hard copy. Then the thing that's really powerful about it is you can go back, and I had patients go back through, reread it one time, because we're not going to keep this, spoiler alert, but reread it one time with a red pen, and you literally draw an X through the parts of that are just not reality. Because, it's the power of bringing things into the light. And I mean, you and I have talked about
getting
things.
The stuff out that's scary.
Yeah. Even you and I talking about situations that we've gone through in our life, I'll say it to you, and you're like, dude, that's not real. And I'm like, oh man, but when you get it out and you get it out of your own brain, you actually can see it for what it is, because you're seeing that reflection of it. And hey, that's a lie that I'm believing, or that's me creating a false reality like we talked about with PTSD and trauma.
Right.
Well, getting it on paper allows you to see it. Like you can physically see, whatever the different feeling or the thought is, and go, that's not real.
But imagine it's like carrying around a backpack with 50-pound weight in it. At some point, getting it off the brain lets you take that weight out of that backpack, put it out there. Hey, is this a weight I should be carrying?
Exactly.
Or is this a weight I should not? And if you shouldn't, you just dump it in the backpack side.
Oh, yeah. If I have a backpack and I have my laptop in it and I have 20 pounds of rocks in there, well, one's necessary because I need my laptop to do work, but the 20 pounds of rocks are just rocks. So if I get them out, it allows me to do the things I need to do, and it allows me to differentiate what's necessary. That's so true.
And it also leaves more room in your backpack for better stuff.
For good things, exactly. So the next step to that, doing the good thing part of the journaling, is right after you X out the things that are not true, because you're literally telling your brain that's a lie. I don't want you to associate that with me anymore. I don't want you to create that neuroplasticity.
Don't hang on to this.
Again, yes, don't hang on to this part. Well, the second part of that is taking a blue pen or a different colored pen. It could be green, whatever works for you, and circle the things that are true and circle the things that are important. Like, hey, that's an issue. I need to go ahead and handle that. That's something that's come up a couple times in journal entries or whatever, so that you focus the brain in on the things that really are meaningful and valuable, and it's something that's important. Then at the end, we tear it up and throw it away. I mean, it literally is the finality of, hey, we're done with this. We're done with that part of the day, and we're letting that go, and it's throwing it away and using like that, divine release. It's like the physical tearing up and the divine release blend of letting that part of that
like
go.
Flushing the toilet
Again to get
Burn
that
it,
out.
Exactly. Fire, whatever.
Yeah, which is
it's
why people
gone.
do that. I mean, like you say that, but like that's why people do it, and they have like almost a ceremony of burning things.
Yeah, we did this in church when I was in the youth group. You write down stuff,
CD,
burn
write down pride or jealousy, whatever, and you burn it so that you release it and you're giving it back. And so that is a huge thing. I mean, I've had so many patients, but one patient, I will say her name's Susie, but she came to the office and her daughter had been a patient of mine for years. She'd come in, she was a competitive cheerleader. Well, the mom had never come to me as a patient. Well, after her daughter went to college, I walk into the room one day and they said, hey, Susie's here to see you. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Walk in the room and she's like bent over in the room, hyperventilating, having a full-on panic attack, and come to find out she had anxiety and panic disorder and depression, had never said anything to me about it. And one of the things we did with her to really help her work through truth, not truth, and allow her to get through that season and get the help she needed was journaling and incorporating in Valor Blend while she was journaling. And it literally allowed her to attach truth, non-truth, and she worked through it. And in the matter of a few weeks was a completely different person, and no longer, I mean, this lady, Andy, used to hide in the bathroom for a full week while her husband was working away from home, because she was so afraid of leaving the bathroom to be able to do anything, even in the rest of the house. I mean, these type of scenarios can be paralyzing for people.
Trauma. Yeah, this is huge.
Yeah, just life-changing stuff. So, I mean, journaling is such a huge deal, but incorporating that in with lifestyle changes and being intentional, like the movement and the diet, those things are vital to help someone work through this.
Is it okay if you journal and keep it?
You can totally journal and keep it. What I would recommend when you're doing it, though, is have a separate journal. And after you work through some of the emotional trauma on the papers, you're going to tear it up. Have another journal. I have a specific journal that I have that I write things in that either the Lord's teaching me or that I really feel like I've gotten out of a situation.
Yeah.
And I can go, hindsight and really like work through it. Those are the journals that I'm keeping so that my kids can read that. The journals over here where my brain was dumping and I'm venting, those are the ones I don't.
You don't want that because you don't want to go back and dwell on that either. That's back to the whatever's true, pure.
Oh yeah, most of it's illogical.
On those
things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So good.
Okay, that's great tips right there. So 3 right there.
Absolutely. And using those intentionally, again, just be intentional. You can see a massive changes in emotional stress and trauma.